Hi everyone, today we're looking at CHCECE012, sustainability. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to play a movie about climate change and sustainability. This would be really good to share with older children in preschool rooms, and really good for you to get an understanding too about sustainable practices and why it's so important that we must really embed this and also be a role model and teach our generation on how to look after the earth and get really good ideas and strategies. And then I'm going to break down the assignment for us. So here we go. This part is so relaxing.
Within the space of just a few decades, the term sustainability has made an extraordinary rise to fame, going from the fringes to the mainstream, as it has become one of the defining features of 21st century reality. Today, the term sustainability encompasses a whole paradigm shift to our understanding of the world and our place within it. This new paradigm of sustainability is set to have a fundamental and pervasive effect on how we manage and design systems in the 21st century, as it will affect all aspects of our economy. This short film explores the ongoing transformation in the structure of our economies as a new form of sustainable economy emerges. The environment represents the whole ecosystem that a society depends upon for various services, such as water, materials, food, and energy. When we refer to the environment, we are really talking about a combination of natural ecosystem and human economy, what is called a socio-ecological system. The nature of socio-ecological systems has changed fundamentally over the course of human history as we have developed new technologies, institutions, and tapped into new energy sources. The development of the practice of agriculture some 8,000 years ago represented the first fundamental change in this dynamic, as we created systematic processes for harnessing natural resources based around the technology of farming. At this point in history, humans were dispersed across the continents, and the Neolithic Revolution was ongoing. The Neolithic Revolution was a fundamental change in the socio-ecological systems of the time, where the shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture led to permanent settlements, the establishment of social classes, the eventual rise of urban living, and large civilizations. Before the modern era, people were very much aware of their environmental limitations. Interactions within socio-ecological systems were local in nature. The majority of traditional societies are the net result of a long process of coevolution between a group of people and their natural environment, which created strong limitations to what was physically and biologically possible and what was not. The majority of people were small-scale subsistence farmers. Most of the agricultural production was for home consumption. Agricultural techniques were adapted to local environmental conditions. The amount of land that each family could cultivate was limited by the large amount of human or animal labor that was necessary for agriculture. For thousands of years, agrarianism formed the foundations to many civilizations that rose and fell around the world. The rise of the modern era, some 500 years ago in Europe, created the context for a whole new dynamic in the relationship between humans and their natural environment. With a shift from a dominant pre-modern religious vision of the world to a modern scientific view, came a whole new way of seeing the natural environment. This new scientific knowledge got directly applied to the engineering of our physical environment, giving rise to the explosive technological change that was the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution that started in the late 1700s represented a radical dislocation between society and the ecosystem. Agriculture changed in Europe when the Industrial Revolution made it possible to use machines instead of human and animal labor for work such as plowing fields and harvesting crops. Starting with mechanization, the chain of effects can be traced through as machines gave farmers the ability to cultivate larger areas of land. Farm sizes and worker productivity increased dramatically as mechanized agriculture is more efficient on a larger scale. The mass of society moved from working the land into the newly industrializing urban centers, where large markets for goods and labor came, the new organizational structure prevailing over their daily subsistence, and a new way of life that was divorced from local ecosystems emerged. A major part of this changing dynamic was the harnessing of new energy sources that were greatly more powerful than anything humans had used to fuel their economies before. The large-scale combustion to the energy sources of coal, oil, and gas enabled the transition to new mass manufacturing processes as they shifted from manual to mechanical. These initial changes in technology, economy, society, and ecology set in motion a series of changes, such as increasing economies of scale, commodification, and urbanization that through interconnected feedback loops continues to this day in many countries around the world. Although it is apparent that the Industrial Revolution ushered in an unprecedented global human impact on the planet, it has since been dwarfed by the extraordinary exponential growth of human economic activity that began in the mid-20th century. Many of the processes of change that began with the Industrial Revolution reached a takeoff point in the mid to late 20th century, as almost all indicators for economy and ecosystem started changing at an exponential rate, from population growth to loss of species to energy consumption. This great acceleration of economic activity has given birth to a new geological era that scientists call the Anthropocene, as human industrial activity has become the primary driver of changes within Earth systems. The Anthropocene represents a new form of socio-ecological system, one that is truly global in nature, with an unprecedented scale of alteration to Earth's core systems, such as overall biodiversity, climate, or ocean acidity. After 1950, changes in major Earth systems became directly linked to changes largely related to the global economic system. This is a new phenomenon, a truly profound transformation in our socio-ecological systems, one that we are far from understanding the consequences of. Within the course of just a few decades, we have transitioned from being a small world on a big planet to being a big world on a small planet, an extraordinary transformation. A switch from making limited ad hoc interventions into ecosystems to becoming the primary drivers of change within the biophysical processes of the entire planet. These changes and their potential consequences are being made most explicit to us through the changes in climate that we are currently witnessing. Through human industrial interventions, the feedback mechanisms that stabilize and regulate Earth's systems have been significantly degraded, both within local ecosystems and increasingly on the global level. The breaking of these stabilizing negative feedback loops increases destabilizing positive feedback that makes the system more unstable and thus generates more extreme events, what scientists call global weirding. We have benefited for over 10,000 years, since the beginning of the Holocene, from Earth regulating itself to create an environment conducive for human economic activity. The Anthropocene is a recognition that this stable geological era has ended, that because of human intervention in the biosphere, it can no longer stabilize itself within the same equilibrium that has benefited societies in the past, that the global economy is now the primary driver of change within ecosystems. The name sustainability is derived from the Latin word sustinere, meaning to hold, and sustain, meaning to maintain or endure. Sustainability then defines the ability of a system or process to endure over a period of time. How sustainable something is can be understood in terms of its overall efficiency, in terms of how effective the whole organization is at operating within its environment. When a system becomes inefficient at operating within its environment, it consumes more of the available resources and produces more entropy or waste, rendering it unsustainable. Sustainability is, though not a property of a thing. Things in isolation cannot be sustainable. Sustainability is more what we call an emergent feature of whole systems. It is not so much about the parts as how the parts work together to enable effective overall outcomes. For example, an electric car is not really sustainable if the power system it is running on imports coal from the other side of the planet to provide it with electricity. Or likewise, if we build an eco-home in the middle of suburbia where the inhabitants have to drive a long distance to do shopping or take their kids to the park, this again will not achieve sustainable outcomes because we are simply optimizing individual parts without optimizing the whole. It is precisely because sustainability is about a relationship between a whole system and its environment that it cannot be achieved through optimizing individual parts, but instead requires us to look at how whole systems work, how all the parts are interrelated to enable the emergence of an efficient overall system and thus sustainable results. This is, to a large extent, why sustainability presents such an intractable challenge to our existing institutional framework. Traditionally, we take a very analytical approach to management. We break systems down into their parts, analyze the parts, and try to optimize them, thinking that if all the parts are working, then the whole will be working. In relatively simple systems, this kind of reductionist approach can work, but in something as complex as an entire economy or global supply chain, it comes to be more how the parts are interrelated into the whole that comes to matter. If we wanted to try and make a supply chain more efficient, we can only get so far by getting each business to optimize their activity in isolation before we need to look at the coordination across the whole supply network. Often when we focus solely on the parts, we simply shift problems to the whole organization. And because of that, we stay getting the same overall ineffective outcomes and unsustainable results. The industrial age management methods and institutional structures that we inherit today are designed to take an analytical approach, breaking problems down, solving the parts, and then putting them back together. Sustainability is, though, a complex and holistic challenge that is not amenable to this method. Although optimizing for the parts may be important in many circumstances, it is really designing and managing for the whole system that is ultimately required to achieve the end result of overall sustainability. Whether we are talking about sustainability with respect to the natural environment or with respect to social institutions, an unsustainable system is one where the value and integrity of the whole organization is being systematically depleted. All organizations require both effective parts and effective overall structures for integrating those parts into a functioning whole. When the integrity of the whole becomes reduced, then the system becomes unsustainable. When the social capital within a society, the trust within the social bonds of the community, becomes depleted, it is only a matter of time before an event occurs creating a crisis that would have easily been resolved given a normal level of trust within the community. And this is the essence of sustainability. It is not a thing, it is the value and integrity of the whole organization that is required to maintain it over time. Whether this is the value of the social bonds within a society or the species diversity that forms the food web within an ecosystem. A sustainable system is one that is integrated into a functioning whole organization. We traditionally focus on the parts in an organization because they are much easier to touch, quantify, and manage, while the value in the connections that interrelates them into an effective whole typically cannot be touched or broken down into individual discrete parts, and is often much more difficult to quantify, making it difficult to manage through our traditional methods. This value of the whole is nonlinear, meaning it is distributed out across the whole organization. It is not one species that maintains the diversity within an ecosystem, it is all of them. It is not the closely knit bonds between people of a similar background that maintains a resilient multicultural society. It is more the distributed weak ties between people of different backgrounds that ensures the overall integrity of the community, its resilience and sustainability. It is this integrity of the whole ecosystem or society that represents the infrastructure or fixed capital that supports and enables it to operate effectively and provide people with the derivatives they value. And in managing such capital, one cannot look at and measure one single connection or one single creature. One has to look at all of them. This is the nature of nonlinear phenomena. It is because these resources within an ecosystem, economy, society, or culture that ensure the functioning of the whole and its sustainability are distributed that traditional centralized management methods are ineffective. Whenever we manage for the parts without managing for the whole, we eventually deplete the integrity that supports the whole and end up with unsustainable outcomes. At the beginning of the modern era, we inherited a natural environment and a set of social and cultural institutions that evolved over millennia without our full understanding or appreciation of them. With the accelerated growth during the 20th century, we came to affect the structure and makeup of these whole systems that were providing the natural and social capital supporting our modern economy, so much so that today they are no longer self-managing. The requirement today is in understanding these macro structures, how they work, their value, and developing organizational structures that can appropriately manage them. Sustainable development is a form of development where we manage both on the level of the individual technologies and organizations, but also on the level of the system as a whole. This is why achieving a sustainable form of global economy will take us into a new world of complexity, because we have to look at, account for, and manage whole interconnected socio-ecological systems in order to achieve overall sustainable outcomes. What gets measured gets managed, and managing for the whole means accounting for the whole, what is called full cost accounting. Our traditional approach to macro-scale environmental management has been exercised through a top-down centralized model, driven by government institutions and based on a paradigm of environmental conservation. But this is no longer relevant in an age when industrial activity has become an embedded part and central driver of change within virtually all ecosystems around the planet. Ecosystems management can no longer be an ad hoc solution patched into the side of the economy. This new context requires that it become a central part of what the economy is and does, and this requires accounting for and incorporating both social and natural capital in market structures. Economies function as distributed management systems. Through the negative feedback loops of the market, they manage whatever it is that people value, can quantify, and exchange. Until very recently, we have only really valued the derivatives of ecosystems, the water, food, minerals, etc., in terms of their utility to which we could ascribe a financial value. Through industrialization, industrial and financial capital has grown, and ecosystems have become degraded. Today, the limits and scarcity are not in lack of human-engineered systems, but in natural capital. In the industrial age, we had a scarcity of people and capital, but an abundance of natural capital. Today, we have an abundance of people and goods, but scarcity of natural capital. So it is now not industry and people that need to be economized, but natural capital that we need to be using more efficiently and creating an economy to do that. Completing the process of industrialization means people's value change subtly but importantly. At this stage in economic development, the scarcity is no longer in the derivatives of ecosystems, but instead the functional integrity of those ecosystems. This integrity of the ecosystem can't be fully measured in terms of monetary utility. Rather, it requires a different kind of capital called natural capital. Using economic and business models to manage ecosystems means firstly understanding those ecosystems and the value of their integrity, and then developing accounting and exchange mechanisms based around this. Ultimately, this means building a new dimension to the economy, a new value system for the quantifying, exchanging, and accounting for natural capital. This process of incorporating the inherent value of ecosystems into economic metrics has already begun and will likely intensify in the coming decades. Since economies are always about people and what they value, as the context changes, as those values change, and as the nature of the resource that needs to be economized changes, so does the economy adapt. But this adaptation won't simply fit into our current economic model. It will require that industrial age economic structures evolve into a more complex, multidimensional form. Managing for the whole means managing for the connections between things. A central part of the rise of environmental awareness over the past few decades has been a growing recognition of the linear model to our existing economy. Indeed, today this linear model is probably the most often identified and criticized structural feature to our existing industrial economy, driving unsustainable results. This linear economic model is captured in the popular description of the economy as a process of take, make, and dispose. But as the economy has grown and reached planetary limits, inputs are appearing more limited, and outputs have become increasingly detrimental to ecosystems. As limits are increasingly met, the emphasis is shifting from gross throughput of material and energy to the internal organization through which those resources are utilized. This new form of economy is called the circular economy, built on the idea of feedback loops that things don't just disappear. Materials and energy go on existing after we use them, and this can be a massive source of value. The circular approach is a concept that has risen to prominence and takes its central insights from living systems. It considers that our systems should work like organisms, processing nutrients that can be fed back into the cycle. From this perspective, a sustainable economy is one without dead ends, with solutions in a sustainable economy built on closing loops between different energy and material flows and converting them into cycles. This nonlinear life cycle view to products and processes necessitates a more complex, holistic view of the systems we design and manage. One that looks for the synergistic connections, works with feedback loops and whole systems instead of discrete, one-off products. Developing a truly circular economy requires diversity and the interconnecting of different systems. Systems and processes that are all the same consume the same resources and produce the same outputs, without the capacity to cycle them between the different elements. It is only by connecting different systems in the right way that we can harness their differences to create synergies between them. Diversity has to be built into the structure of the economy, with different processes and systems coexisting and thriving off of each other's differences. A sustainable economy is one that does not just manage for things, but for how those things are interconnected and interrelated to form synergies that enable the continuous cycling of resources. A sustainable economy is a dematerialized economy, where innovation is focused on delivering greater functionality with ever less material demand. One that can deliver more services with less stuff. One of the most environmentally destructive elements to the linear economic model has been its incentive structure that drives businesses to overproduce and people to overconsume in what has come to be called the consumer society. The industrial model was based on the mass production of tangible products that were pushed out to end users. Mass production meant that companies had to sell en masse, which gave rise to mass marketing and the creation of a consumer culture that went global with globalization. In this product-based transactional paradigm, there was a strong divide between the producer and consumer around the point of transactions due to the fact that both customer and producer had different incentives and motives that ran largely contrary to each other. Over the past couple of decades, with the rise of information technology, has come a new model to value delivery called the services economy. A services economy is one where the focus is on the service delivered, the actual outcomes of a process. It is based on the system's delivered functionality instead of the amount of resources consumed in the production of the product. By shifting the producer's revenue stream away from the production of products and focusing it on the delivery of functionality, servicization is a powerful approach for breaking the core dynamic driving the consumerist economic model. With servicization, ownership of the product stays with the producer, and its maintenance likewise remains their responsibility. In such a way, they are incentivized to produce less while delivering more functionality. The end result is an alignment of the interests of the end user with producer and sustainable outcomes for the overall system. Services are really about access. The idea that people want access to services instead of simply the ownership of products. This is why the services economy goes hand in hand with networked information technology. Information technology and online platforms enable us to easily and cheaply coordinate the exchange and temporary usage of resources, thus working to make access easier and cheaper than ownership. In this way, extra capacity can be created through more effective organization instead of actually producing more products. A sustainable economy would be one that is able to focus its innovation and resources not on producing more products, but on delivering greater functionality through the intelligent coordination of existing resources. sustainable economy would be one where we manage for the whole life cycle, where systems are adaptable and resilient, capable of evolving in response to major changes in the environment. Our economies have co-evolved with the natural environment over centuries and millennia. Many of our industrial systems are adapted to normal operating environments, but these normal environmental conditions may not be present in the future. The natural environment is changing in very profound, unpredictable, and most likely irreversible ways. Within this context, there is a manifest need to shift from systems that are optimized for efficiency within stable and predictable environments to those that have a much greater level of adaptive capacity, resilience, and are capable of evolving to meet new requirements. Whether we are talking about technology infrastructure or social institutions, the centralized systems of organization we developed during the industrial age are inherently static. They are built once and then go through a linear life cycle with limited capacity to renew themselves. They were not designed to evolve. The challenge of achieving a sustainable form of development is shifting the emphasis from discrete one-off products to looking increasingly at how they can evolve through their full life cycle. This is a fundamental switch in paradigm from designing systems that are inherently degenerative over time to systems that are inherently regenerative. A central challenge that sustainability presents today is in developing organizations and technology infrastructure that have built-in mechanisms to enable the evolution of their overall structure. Sustainable organizations are organizations that can evolve over time. They do not just develop on the micro level of the parts changing, but they are also able to successfully navigate change on the macro level, allowing for the whole system to change. Responding to systemic change requires building evolutionary mechanisms into the fabric of organizations. Unlike our traditional centralized mechanisms for regulation that can respond effectively to relatively small-scale changes, evolution is the only way for a whole system to respond to a macro-level change. Evolution is a distributed process. No one is in control or can be in control. It is a process whereby many diverse possible solutions have to be tried before the best solutions can be identified. It is a process that involves both diversity but also interaction between the system and its environment in order to identify the best options. Much of our systems of organization are built on a linear model where we try to externalize any form of nonlinearity as it is inherently uncontrollable. In the process, diversity is dumbed down and pushed outside of the organization. The end result is a short-term efficient system, but one that no longer has the diversity and mechanisms for generating overall transformation, thus resulting in a linear life cycle and unsustainable solutions. Developing solutions that can endure over several life cycles means recognizing the need for this evolutionary process and the need for the diversity that fuels it. The challenges presented by the environmental crisis and sustainable development are of a kind that we have not seen before, and we do not currently have coherent solutions to. As a famous person once said, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Traditional thinking, institutions, and management methods that created the sustainability crisis will not solve it. As such, the development of truly sustainable global economy would involve a transformation in the deep structure of post-industrial economies to exhibit new functional capabilities. One thing is for sure, though, the development of our socio-ecological systems will continue to evolve rapidly in the coming decades. Building this new form of sustainable economy will be a massively disruptive transformation. And there will be many surprises and pitfalls along the way, with many widely divergent outcomes remaining possible.
Okay, now we're going to go through the assignment assessment. So we're going to have a look at the short answers, okay? So in assessment 1, we're going to have a look at standard 3.3 in the National Quality Standards. Okay, now I cannot stress this enough, guys. Please make sure you have all of these documents downloaded, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get the National Quality Standards. You can just go to Google, that's the simplest way, and go the National Quality Standards, okay? Now the document will come up, it's a PDF document. Okay, now this here is the cheat sheets, okay? Now I'm going to go back and show you again. I just went into the National Quality Standards. Now this is the actual document in here on the CHCECE012 website. Please look at that website, use it. Like honestly, anything you want to know childcare related, that is a national body website for Australia. So please start getting yourself familiar with this website. Anything that you want to know, any rules, regulations, framework stuff, It's all on here, guys. So there's like, oh, I don't know why my computer keeps doing this lately, sorry. It's all on here. So please look at it. See, look, there's your 7 quality areas there, okay? Now, if you scroll down to the bottom, print this out. I can't stress enough to you, okay? Print it, put it everywhere. Take it with you on placement. Just, you know, get to know where it comes and learn it, okay? Every day. So here's your quality areas, here's your concepts, and here's your descriptions, okay? So if we look at the question, and it says here, standard 3.3. So we know it's like quality area 3. So we're gonna go 3. Oh, this is the old version, but that's okay. It's here, okay? So it tells you it's 3.2 about sustainability, inclusive environment. It's all in here. Whoops, I should make this a bit bigger. It's all in here, okay? It's all there. You just got to read it, okay? So I'll make this a bit bigger. Also, this is all this information is in the PowerPoint too, guys. Who should you discuss the strategies and just sustainability practices too? Again, if you read the website, the PowerPoint, it's all in there. Also too, don't forget to read your textbook chapters, okay? Because you will find so much information in there, it's not funny. Okay. Now, match the main principles of sustainability to the definition, okay? These principles are actually, and the definitions are actually in your textbook chapter. Now, the textbook chapter is linked to your PowerPoint. It tells you what pages to read. It is all there, okay? So just when you answer these, please just put like an A. Don't change all these. Don't make them pretty. Just answer whatever. So here we've got A, B, C, D, E. You know, you might think this one is F. So just put the answer like that, okay? Don't go changing the format tile at all. Who can the whole of the centre, how can the whole of the centre be involved in sustainability approaches? You know, it's about working together as a team. It's about, you know, understanding, going to professional development, learning about ways you can educate children about sustainability, how you as an educator can turn your centre around to be sustainable, okay? You got to reach out. Look, there's so many government websites, courses, government funding to help your centres. You know, they give you free trees, free worm farms. There's so much you can do. It's not funny. Describe the benefits of a service implementing sustainability practices. They will save cost. You know, they're reducing, you know, their power. They are, you know, reducing waste. And not only that, they're teaching the next generation about sustainable practices. You know, if we teach your children, it also ripple effects at home as well, okay? List the basic steps of effective cleaning. Again, that's in your textbooks and PowerPoint. When is it necessary to use disinfectants? Disinfectants are really hard on the ozone layers. You know, we don't need to be using heavy disinfectants and that all the time. Okay, fair enough at the moment with the coronavirus, I get all that. But hot water and bicarb soda can do just as good as job. What are the benefits regularly using cleaning soapy water? It's all in your PowerPoint. Identify a common cleaning procedure at a childcare centre and list 2 changes that you would intake. So cleaning procedure. So what this could be like is the beds. So usually what people do is they spray the beds with like a special sanitizer solution or Durex, whatever it's called. It's highly toxic, okay? And then you wipe down each bed. Do you know what you're better off doing when you're cleaning the beds? You're better off having it fun. We're in summer. It's hot in Australia, okay? Take the kids out. Get them to wash the beds. Just use bicarb hot soapy water. Leave them out in the sun to dry. The sun is the biggest thing for disinfectant. You don't need to use harsh chemicals. So what I would be doing there, changing, would be like the cleaning procedure, it would be called like cleaning beds. Okay, changes. Instead of using chemicals, we will change it to like, you know, bar carb, like this is what you write in here, bar carb, soapy water, and then to be aired in the sun, okay? Explain why antibacterial is not suitable for hand washing using soap and running water. Yeah, because it doesn't get rid of all the germs, it just sustains it. So you should be washing your hands and then like sanitizing, okay? Again, it's in the thing. Now, this is in your PowerPoint as well with the energy rating levels, okay? So circle which appliances are currently subject. So you just gotta, if you can't circle them, you can just highlight them as well, just go like that. But just please make it sure it's clear for the assessor to understand which is your correct answer. Explain how using the energy rating label system when purchasing appliances is for children's services. Remember the 5 stars, okay? So 1 is bad, 5 is good, okay? When you're buying like new appliances, yes, sometimes the cheaper ones don't have a good rating system. If you put more money into it, you know, you'll be saving less power and all of that. So you're getting your money back in return by spending that little extra. Okay, so when talking about sustainability practices within the environment, refer to the natural environment like your plants, leaves, water, grass, and constructive things like buildings, equipment, marine resources. Identify 2 as an educator that you can roll like natural. So have a garden for the kids, teach them to look after it, teach them to grow vegetables. Do you know how many children wouldn't even know the names of vegetables? Feed it to them. Use it in your center. Constructive could be like, you know, equipment, turn off the lights, do things, save power, okay? Use the clothesline instead of the dryer, okay? Explain how you could provide children with information about sustainable practices. How are you going to teach your children about sustainability? Tell me how you're going to do that. Are you going to read them books? Are you going to teach them things? Are you going to sing them songs? Are you going to, you know, talk about it? Okay, in this case study 1, this is an activity that can be engaged in families and children collecting recyclable materials that can be used. So you have to give a child a paper bag and a note of instructions. For example, plastic lids, cotton buds, blah, 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 blah. Each child can return their bag, small groups, and then plan, implement, and exercise, okay? So what note, so you got to basically write a note to the parents, okay? Make sure you check your spelling and grammar. What 5 questions will the group ask when the children return their things? How can we use this? How can we recycle it? What can we do with these things? Does anyone know what this is? You could even say to the children, do you know how long it takes for the earth to break that down, especially plastic bottle tops, yogurt containers and all that? They can all be recycled. Comment briefly on how you'd inform children about recycling and sustainability practices demonstrations, okay? Again, in your PowerPoint, read your textbook chapter. Suggest how you could extend and build on these children's experiences. What activities could you do? How could you teach the children about being sustainable? Are you a role model? Are you playing your part? Okay, so this one here, reduce, reuse, recycle. Basically, for each of the research, you need to give 2 strategies on how to reuse and recycle, okay? Energy use, that's like how we're going to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So give me 2. So that could be turning off the lights, putting out the washing, water saving, turning off taps, getting a rain tank water thing, wastage, you know, recycling food scraps, have a worm farm or something. From the strategies you identified, choose 1 strategy and describe how you would engage the children, family, and staff in these sustainable practices. So tell me which one of these you've chosen. It could be food scraps. Children, they're going to put their food in a, you know, recyclable food scrap. Families, they might want to buy worm juice from the worm farms that you're creating because you're putting all your scraps in the worm farm. Staff, making sure that, you know, you do your worm garden, you put your scraps in there, the children's food scraps in there, whatever, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is, I did play this last week and I didn't record it. So I'm going to play a 3-part series on how to do sustainable practices in early childhood. Now, I also want to show you, if you don't understand what I'm talking about by worm farms and things like that, in our, sorry, I dropped my webpage. In our course page, if I quickly go back into it, oh, why does that keep doing that? We have in this unit, come on, my internet's now slow. Anyway, in 0012, here we go. I have videos and information on all of these. So look at all this, okay? There's your textbook chapter, promoting outdoor learning. There's resources, sustainability in childcare. I have all of this. Here's your worm farms. If you don't know what I'm talking about, your community garden. Watch these videos, learn it, understand it, okay? Now, I'm just gonna quickly jump on and play the 3-part series. So bear with me.
Welcome to another edition of Talking About Practice. My name's Luke Toohill, and today we're in Brisbane visiting 2 services that have an outstanding reputation for environmental sustainability. Later in the program, we'll also be visiting a service in Sydney that has a similar reputation. Sustainability is a big part of the EYLF and the NQS, and more than ever before, services are being asked to incorporate sustainable practices into their day-to-day operation and into their work with children. In this program, we want to investigate what that really means. What does it look like and how do you do it?
My name's Melindy Robertson. I am co-director at Mount Gravatt Kindergarten in Brisbane. I've been here for about 5 years and I've probably worked in the early childhood sector for close to 30 years. The kindergarten's about 55 years old, and there was a previous teacher here, Mary Luddy, that was here for nearly 40 of those years. And she had this vision of making a playground that was exciting and challenging, yet very calm and lots of hidey holes for the children, and that was really interesting, very different to a lot of other playgrounds. And over the years she did that, and I think she achieved that.
Definitely
Yeah, she has. So, you know, it was her, you know, she had the idea for the slide, and I think she probably planted every single tree that was here. So we've got 3 water tanks now. There's the 2 big ones up there, and we've just, over the last couple of weeks, there's a 3rd one installed behind the shed,
Right.
which will collect a lot of rainfall.
Yep.
Now,
And what do you use that water for?
at the moment, it's for the irrigation system.
Yep.
We did think about using it for the toilets. However, we then had to work out which was more important, toilet flushing water or maintaining our playground.
Yes.
And because we've had a couple of droughts, and a lot of Queenslanders now officially drought declared, we decided that this was very important to us, and that was the main thing to do. We do have solar panels up there.
Yep.
And we do have little or no power bills.
Fantastic.
And very careful with turning lights off and turning power points off that are not being used. And you notice with the water trough that was filled up with rainwater this morning, at the end of outside time, the children always empty that on the plants.
Yes, I saw them watering everything.
Or they fill up the bird baths. Yes, they fill up the bird baths, or they put water out for the lizards.
So there must be quite a bit of wildlife out here.
Yeah, there is actually. We do have a resident python somewhere.
Oh, wow.
That actually goes next door, so that's all right. It doesn't come out when the children are here. We do have a lot of lizards, water dragons and blue-tongued lizards, and that major skink that will probably come out today up on the veranda. If you look up in the trees, there's 6 nesting boxes for possums, gliders and parrots, so we do get a lot of bird life here.
Fantastic.
We have heard koalas up there. We haven't seen them in the playground, but they can get through because the trees are close enough. So we've heard them. We've heard them at night, especially the male koalas, because they're very distinctive.
There's obviously a lot of recycled materials as well in the playground.
In the actual construction of it, like if you look at this is a very popular area for the children to use. So we've just got the tyres, and it's actually an old conveyor belt. set into the hillside. So they slide down there. It's a bit hot, gets a little bit hot in the afternoon, but we're not usually out here. And they slide down on pieces of like synthetic material.
Yep.
And in summertime, we sometimes put the hose out.
Looking around, there's really none of the obvious playground equipment that you see so often.
We do have some in the shed, but we tend not to bring it out regularly, and we prefer not to use a lot of metal and plastic equipment. I find that we try and use as many natural resources as well, and the children use a lot of recycled or natural resources around the playground in their play, a lot of loose parts. So we do have climbing frames and things, but I find they get a lot of climbing experience going up the tree ladders, up the vines. In fact, anywhere up there, they get a lot.
So outside, it's a beautiful natural environment. Do you think that makes a difference to children's behaviour?
Definitely, definitely. When I first started here, I was working at another kindergarten as well part-time, so I was doing 2 centres in the 1 week, and it was really interesting. Every week I would be reminded of how different their play was, and the other centre had a nice playground as well, but it was more traditional. I found the children's play was much calmer here. It was much quieter. I don't mind noise, as long as it's constructive noise. It was calmer, it was quieter, it was more imaginative, and I think they also just had the room. They had the room to move.
I noticed lots of bare feet, both
Yes.
staff and children.
Yes, I have bare feet. When it's warm, I keep my shoes on in winter. We encourage the children to take their shoes off, because I think it's important for safety, for climbing, to be able to feel what they're hanging on to with their feet, with their toes. And I think it's very important because it's a sensory thing as well. And I would hate it to be the situation where they never got to feel any natural substances underneath their feet. So that would be a very sad day. Okay, so this is our clumping bamboo. Wow. It's not the spreading bamboo, so that's okay. And the children have just gradually hollowed out a little space in here, so they often use that as their little house.
It's amazing.
And it's very
cool, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool in there. But you'll find, there'll be carpet squares and blankets and tea sets and all sorts of things in there. So this is a wonderful little area.
So what does sustainability mean to you?
There's quite a few definitions of sustainability, but the one that I like to use is being able to meet our current needs without infringing on the needs of future generations, to be able to fill their needs. So sustainability, as well as the environmental things, is also to do with equity and fairness and social justice things as well, on a global, but also on an individual basis. So looking at it from quite a broad perspective of what is sustainable, yes,
rather than necessarily just being about environmentalism.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're obviously, I don't want to say the word lucky, but you've had the benefit of someone with a lot of foresight planning this yard over a long period of time.
I call myself lucky.
Well, what do you say to someone who doesn't have the benefit of that? Someone who has the artificial grass, artificial shade sail, nothing natural in the yard, and wants to start thinking about being sustainable. Where would you start?
I would, if I was a centre looking at that, what I would first do is do an audit. New South Wales EC, they have the EcoSmart audit. If you're a member, that's free. I would highly recommend that. That's wonderful. I do have one here somewhere. And that allows you to look at all your practices, make a baseline of where you were, and then to start. I would look at trying to green up a centre. If you had a total area that was just totally the plastic grass, I would look at bringing in pot plants. Even large ones that you can still shift around. You could make little hidey holes of little rooms virtually to encourage natural play. I don't think we give children enough hidey holes. So you can still safely supervise, but at least they have got somewhere that they can withdraw to or have their own little area. But you would be looking at your energy usage or wastage of it. You'd be looking at staff. You would be looking at your cleaning products. You would be looking at what your resources were made out of. With the staff, you really need to have everybody on board.
Well, I was going to ask you that.
Yes.
Do you think you have to? Is that a sort of prerequisite? Everyone has to be committed to it? Or do you think that develops
you would hope
as you
so.
go?
You would hope so. There will always be people who are more committed than other people. I would say here everybody is on the same page. We did have to make sure that our cleaners knew what was going on, particularly in recycling and, you know, emptying the rubbish bins at the end of the day and just chucking everything into the red bin or black bin, whichever state you're in.
Tell me a bit about some of the decisions you've made at the kindy here, where you've brought a sustainability focus to it.
Well, when I came in here, a lot of things were already set up in place. We have now, as I said, we've got the other water tank going now, so we are irrigating with rainwater when it rains, when we finally get rain. We use a lot of resources that have been donated. I mean, we occasionally buy resources in paper and cardboard, but it would only be for things that we need that we haven't been able to get for free somewhere else that have been donated. We do have some very old equipment and resources here. You've seen the phones and the block accessories and things like that. So we've kept all those and we've kept them in really good condition. And we have bought some new resources. We always try to buy timber things. If we can't buy them in timber, we would buy them in plastic. If we felt that they were not able to be purchased in any other way, we would. With the plastic things, we made a conscious decision that we weren't going to get rid of plastic. If it was here already and was useful, we would keep things here. We're not into wasting resources that we buy, whether they're timber or whether they're a natural product or whether they're plastic. So you still will see plastic things around. So we're not wasting resources, whatever it is, that way, which I think is an important point, because some centres think that they have to get rid of all their plastic things.
Yes.
You know, and do you get rid of your Lego because it's made out of plastic? Of course not.
It seems like it's lots of those little things throughout the day that make up that whole focus on sustainability. There's not one major thing.
I think there's a lot of things embedded in the program here. Like you saw the children arriving this morning, they all go and wash, as I've said, they wash their hands, they dry it there. They know not to leave the tap running. They don't waste water and they understand why. You've seen their lunch boxes at morning tea and lunchtime. They're very healthy. They recycle their scraps into the worm farm, the ones that can be recycled. We ask the parents not to bring plastic Glad wrap pre-packaged snacks, and most of the time that's successful. I won't say all the time, but most of the time it is. And their drinks, they don't bring poppers or anything like that. They bring their own water bottles, which we top up throughout the day.
So you've recently made a decision, for instance, to bring back hand towels rather than paper towels.
Yes, we have, because I was always very unhappy with the amount of paper towel wastage amongst. We did some calculations. We worked out with the children how many they were using for the day. Somewhere between, and then we add up for the year, we talked to the committee about it, it's between 14 and 20,000 a year.
Wow.
And that's not including fundraising functions or social events. So we thought, apart from just the environmental waste of paper and all the production costs involved in it, it just seemed ludicrous to be spending hundreds of dollars on a resource that you just throw out. So we wanted to go back to hand towels again.
Now we're sitting here on what's a really hot day in Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's 36 degrees.
It's 36 degrees out there.
But it's still amazingly cool here.
It is. We're very lucky. As you can see, there's a lot of trees around the playground. So we have enough, we generate enough solar power up there, but we also have enough shade to keep the kindergarten cool. We have new louvers there to direct the airflow inside, so we don't have air conditioning inside. It's about 5 degrees cooler. When you walk out in the street later, you'll go, oh my goodness, I can't believe how hot it is. I will say that it's actually very cold in winter, but we say to the children, if you're cold, you need to put a jumper on. And we put a jumper on, and you need to bring a blanket at rest time. So it's a no-brainer.
So for those services who are used to air conditioning and the switch is just there and it's very easy to turn on.
Well, in some cases, some centres are really, really hot. And I think for the children's health, in some cases, you do need it. You do need it. So I would just hope there's other things that they're doing in place, other sustainable measures that would offset it, or having solar panels to offset it. I did work in a very hot kindergarten before, and I can understand. I can be there. I can appreciate that.
I think for some people, there's a sense that a worm farm and a vegetable garden is sustainability.
Yes, it is. It's a good start. It's a really good start. I think probably the most important things are people using them as just to pass the sustainability element of NQS, or they're actually really engaging with it. So it probably, some people might say that's a token thing. And if they're just putting it in for that point, yes, it is a token thing. But if they're really involving the children with it, the children know why you're doing it, the children are actually using it, then I would say even if that's the only start you make to begin with, then I wouldn't call that a token. I would say that's the start of engaging with things. So I think that's really good. I think with sustainability, as with many other things, if your children are involved, your children know why you're doing it, and you can see everybody else is getting involved in it, staff and children, I think that's a sign that it's successful. And I would put that with a lot of activities.
Tell us about the rubbish dump experiment.
Well, this came up in discussions about what was recyclable and what wasn't, and why we shouldn't, why we should be putting plastic out to be recycled. So we used this garden bed and we buried a variety of objects with the children last term. So what sort of things did we bury?
Glass lid.
Yes? Yeah, was it the glass lid or was it the glass bottle?
Glass bottle.
Leaves, yep. Bark, yep. They dug it up this morning.
Yes.
Some objects we've found, one, I suspect the rest have rotted away or decomposed.
So there's a range of things they put in.
The range of things in there. I think it's made out of.
It's glass.
It's a glass bottle. Now, let's have a look. It's pretty dirty, but do you think it's changed?
Yes.
Has it? How do you think it might have changed?
Because a sticker, they're kind of coming.
I feel obviously very happy that my child's coming here, because I feel that instead of being locked in a box, he's actually being able to explore the nature that's around him and be in touch with it. And I think that to be in touch with nature means that they're going to be, I guess, more likely to have green behaviours later on in life. Just the other day, he came home talking about how they had an activity where they had 3 different bins, different coloured lids, and they were putting different pictures of different rubbish into the appropriate coloured bins. The children, as they learn in an environment like this, will take that learning home to the parents and the family, and therefore establish new routines in their own families.
I'm Margaret Sear and I'm the teacher here at C&K Redlands Community Kindergarten in Cleveland in Brisbane. I've been here for quite a lot of years now, at least 20, and I love working in this service. It's just such a natural service and it's so embodied with its sustainability that it feels like a really pleasant place to be and the way to work. I've been the director over the past 15 or so years and I've only just stepped down as teacher in the last couple of years. So I've been very involved with the centre's journey in sustainability. I believe in sustainability issues and that education for sustainability is really, really important. I think sustainability is important for a service in that you need to be looking at your carbon footprint, you need to be looking at the energy usage and how you can minimise that and how you can make best use of everything. And then, of course, in the purchasing and all your materials, what's the most sustainable way of travelling forward for children?
So you've been able to do a lot of that in recent years, haven't you?
Yes.
You were telling me earlier about how much, in terms of savings, in terms of power and water and all those things.
Yes, it's been probably since the early 2000s we started really looking seriously at what we were going to do here at C&K Redlands, and so we started putting some things in place. We put in some big water tanks.
Oh yes, I can see those.
Yes, they're 5,000 litres,
Yep.
And they're all
Fantastic.
interconnected off the roof, and then they have a backup pump to the mains, just because sometimes, you know, the water gets quite low and you can't use it, because these actually run the toilets in
I was
this
going to say,
unit.
you use these for
Yeah.
toilets and washing as well?
We do a little bit of washing, but we've also got just a tap here that we can come and collect the water from and take down to our other play areas. So we've actually cut our water usage by half and our energy usage by half at this point. So as I was saying to you, a typical household in Redlands uses about 21 kilowatt hours of power energy a day, and we're down at 14. So in our centre.
That's fairly impressive for a double unit centre.
A double unit centre, yes.
So we're using less than the average household.
Yes, it is. It's really good. We put out 1.5 bins in our recycling bins every fortnight, and that's just paper towel, and that's all we put out. And our rubbish bin's down to about a half a bin or one, and that's it a week. So we're doing quite well with keeping rubbish down. It's a very inviting place. It's like your own backyard. There's nooks and there's crannies. There's little places to play. I'll show you these lovely spiders we've got.
Ah, wow. The spider frame.
Yes. Our playground is very vegetated, and so we get a lot of spiders. And the children have been extremely keen on these golden orbs.
They're beautiful.
And they've been here for a little while now, as you can see. So they've got their nest and they've got their web and they've got their little prey bundles that they collect. Yeah. And sometimes the children come here and try to work out if the male, these are females because they're quite large.
Yep.
And they often eat the males. So they come and try and see if they can find a male somewhere around and see how he's going.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, most people would be sweeping these away and being worried about what they might do.
Well, even when we have the pest people in, we have a rent-a-kill group that comes through and uses low chemicals. We actually ask them not to go anywhere near the spiders in the yard, and our cleaners know that they shouldn't either. Everything we do has a sustainable side to it. So even when you're looking at the curriculum or you're looking at the NQS, it's not a separate issue, it's just part of. So everything we do, we think, is this a sustainable thing? I think the thing that's been most important is it's been small steps.
Okay, yes. I was going to say, there's a lot there, but it seems to have happened over quite a period of time.
Yes, you can't do everything instantly, but you can do little steps all the time that make big differences. Children can be the strongest advocates for all of this, so if you encourage them to do it, then usually they go home with that language and talk to their parents. And many of our families choose the centre because of the fact that we encourage healthy foods and we encourage the sustainable issues. The children are very conscious of why they recycle, and most of our lunchboxes are completely litter-free. We have a few things that might be recycled and some that are a little bit of rubbish. But usually we just keep encouraging and you just do the best you can. And so when we're talking, we talk about using paper that we've reused from another purpose.
Yep.
And we actually have a program at the beginning of the year where we encourage the families to bring in natural materials for artwork rather than buying, and we talk to the children about that.
Well, it's one of the things that struck me being here today is the fact that there is, I mean, obviously there's some bought materials, but so much of what you use is found or recycled or donated materials.
Yes, it's found, recycled and donated. Your staff are probably a big thing. So if you all have a shared vision, and we sat down a few years ago and actually thought about what we wanted, and we knew that the beautiful natural environment was something that people came for. So we actually have chosen to follow that as being the way we're going.
And do you think you need that first? I mean, for a centre that hasn't really engaged with sustainability to now, do you think you need to get that ethos right first?
You probably need to do both at the same time. I don't think we got the ethos first and then went ahead and did it.
Okay.
I think the ethos grew with what we were doing, and that's because as you start to do it and you
see
live
benefits.
it and you see the benefits and the children come on board.
There's obviously been a lot of hard work and a lot of planning to get to what you've got now. For a service though that doesn't maybe have the advantage of your starting point, doesn't have a beautiful natural environment to begin with.
Yes.
Where do you think you should start? What would be your advice?
My advice is to take small steps, and you can start very easily. The first thing is to start talking with your children and starting to get some of the practices into place inside and outside. Look at the equipment you've got, and budgets are very hard these days. So look around and look for found materials. Even without grass, a lot of services, of course, have got the artificial grass, and there's nowhere to dig a garden. Gardening with children is really important, so connecting with the earth and getting involved is important, even for babies. So just finding materials and other equipment that you can use to build a garden in. We started with one of our gardens in our water tank, in our water tub, and just drilled some holes in the bottom, and one day it'll collapse, but you know, it's been there for at least 5 years at the moment. So I would always try to get a few containers and get a bit of a garden going. If possible, think about the grants you can get. Think about what in your centre that you cannot move, like your fixtures such as your power and your water, and then look around and say, what else can I do? So you might be able to actually remove some of that plastic fantastic and artificial turf and add something natural in.
But I mean, it sounds like it really has to be a long-term vision.
Yes, it does eventually, for you to get the best that you can have for your children, but it can happen fairly quickly because tubs of plants can be brought in overnight and be there within sort of 2 days. You can get pot plants, families share things, they bring in bits and pieces for gardening. You can grow in gumboots, you can grow in buckets, you can grow in just about anything. You could even grow in a cardboard box for quite a while before it fell down. And the other thing is to try and connect with people in the area that will help you. So there are a lot of community gardens around these days, and the members of those would probably come in and help. So the gardening, the recycling is always the good place to start.
It sounds like it obviously helps if that's your sort of natural mindset. If you're natural, if you've been brought up with it, if it's something that you do in your own life, it kind of naturally flows into it.
But staff have got different ways of bringing things to the table. So it is very helpful if there's somebody who's passionate and has the drive, even if it's in your committee or your administrative body, or somebody that you can connect with that can come and help your service. But there are ways of being natural. You can have people who really don't like gardening and worm farms, but would be happy to sit down with pebbles and wood and timber and do crafty things. They don't have to do them with bought materials and plastic bits and pieces, or you can do that in recycled and reused materials.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things I hear people say when they're not sure about sustainability is it just seems very hard, that there's a lot of information. It's not always hard to work, it's sometimes hard to work out which way to go. There's a lot of conflicting information about which things are most sustainable.
Yes.
How do you make sense of that? How does someone who doesn't know a lot come to grips with all of that information that's out there?
I think looking for people to help you is one good way. There are groups out there. There are groups in all of the states that are involved in early childhood sustainable networks. I think you need to look for people to help. And if it's all very overwhelming, then ignore most of it and look for the simplest thing to do and just work on that little bit until you build your courage up, and then go to the next step and gradually work on it. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's not worth it. It's a big job anyway, but don't reinvent the wheel. But you don't have to feel overwhelmed by it. Just take it in little bite sizes, and it's best.
I mean, with all that you've done here, and as you said, reduce the power and the water consumption by half, and all of the other things, is there more you still want to do? Is it ever finished? Do you ever feel like we've got there, we can stop, or is it something that you keep moving with?
No, I don't think it can really completely be finished, because that's what sustainability is all about. But there are certainly things that we want to do as a service, and we want to grow what we have. Certainly we're looking a lot more at reusing and recycling materials in our artwork and our use of equipment with the children. And the other thing that we're really going to sort of do a lot more expanding into is engaging with the outside environment. Being able to go across to the park over the road here, where we could wander down to the mangroves, or going to the bushlands that are a little bit, not too far away.
So it's really making children feel part of not just the environment here, but the whole of their local environment.
And it's becoming more aware that children are disconnected with nature in a lot of respects. It is changing around, but last year we had a little fellow that the moment he got to the end of the concrete, he stopped and he could not put his foot on the grass. And he virtually climbed up us every time he stepped off. this year he's running around, you know, up the trees and whatever. But it's been a journey for him and his family, actually, to shift their mindset to thinking outside and nature play as well.
It's actually a good thing. Just a final question. You've been through assessment
Oh, yes.
for the National Quality Standard.
Yes, we have.
You were rated as exceeding.
Yes, we were.
I think sometimes people are worried about how they might document this kind of thing. How do you show someone that you're doing all of this sustainability when an assessor is maybe only there for a day and
Yes.
they may not see everything?
That's right.
How did you find that process?
Well, it wasn't as daunting as people first think. We were fortunate in that we had done an accreditation, so we knew that process before, but that was a couple of years ago. We did our assessment 6 weeks into term. We found out that we were having our assessment just before we came back, so we had very new children. They were only here for 6 weeks, which means that some of them had only been here for, say, 12 days. And so even in that time frame, just by walking through those processes and what we do in our policies, like washing your hands and counting to 10 and drinking your water and, you know, using one paper towel, etc., it was obvious that it wasn't something that was artificial.
Yeah, it wasn't just being put on for the assessment.
No, that's right. And so the assessors were very good. We actually had 2 watching because we had 1 in training, so it was a little bit sort of daunting having 2. But they just sat back, and if there was something they didn't know or couldn't see, they just asked. We didn't bother documenting with a lot of folders. We did put a lot of information in the office in a big basket for them so they could quickly see it that we were asked. It was more to do with the actual administration side of things. We put that there for them to find. But mainly it was just watching us and seeing us. And they're listening to your language. They're listening to how you talk to the children. Hi, I'm Catherine Lee and I'm the Director of the Point Preschool at Oyster Bay.
What does sustainability mean to you?
Well, sustainability means to me a lot of things. Looking at the environment and how we help the environment, but also how we care for each other. And I found that as the children have cared for the environment, that they have nurtured and cared for each other as well. It's looking at where we get our resources from, so looking at fair trade and being responsible and ethical in our buying.
What was the starting point for it for you? Where did your interest in sustainability come from?
That's come from my mum and dad. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of things. Mum and dad couldn't afford a lot of things, so we always had things that were handed down and given to us by friends or relatives. Mum was great at sewing and knitting, and we would spend a lot of our weekends in my granddad's veggie patch and growing our own food.
So a lot of that's sort of just been part of your life.
Yeah,
your whole
very
life.
much.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful childhood, and I have really strong memories of connecting with the land and connecting with my parents, my brother, and, you know, my grandparents. And I think that's what I'd like to bring to children as well.
Do you think it's harder if someone hasn't had that upbringing to be sustainable and to really, I guess, to put that into practice?
I think it's hard in that if you haven't had that experience with growing veggies, you might not know where to start. But I think all of us have had some sort of experience of caring for the environment and caring for each other. And I think if you look at your own interests, that makes it a little bit easier, and you can start with an interest you have, or you might find that one of the children might have a particular interest and you can start there.
So, Catherine, tell us a bit about the preschool.
Well, the preschool was built in 1956 by a group of parents of Oyster Bay. We're community-based, not-for-profit.
Yep.
And up until a couple of years ago, we still had some grandchildren of the
wow.
people who built the preschool still coming here, which is just lovely.
Yeah, it's a really nice connection with the community.
Oh, beautiful connection. We've still got neighbours across here.
Yep.
Norma, she's been involved with the preschool since 1956.
Oh, wow.
And she still comes over and supports us.
Fantastic. Great. And how long have you been here?
This is the end of 14 years.
So has it always been like this?
No, not always. When I first came here, it had the established trees, a lot of concrete,
Okay, yep.
and a lot of dirt.
Right.
But a very loved preschool. And since I arrived, we've done small projects with the children and with the families involved, and just looked at a small area at a time.
So it's been quite a gradual process.
Very gradual. At first we thought we'd like to do the whole preschool, but then we realised it was just more exciting and meaningful to have the children and the families involved. And so it's been a slow project over those years, and we've still got lots more we'd like to do.
Was it something that you wanted to do when you came here, or did it develop after you'd started?
It was something I wanted to do when I came here, because I think I saw the potential of what could be here, because it was particularly up this area, a bit of a blank canvas.
Yep.
And just with my own personal hobbies and life is just connecting with nature, and this was an amazing space that we could do that.
Yeah.
And so the children were very excited when this was our first project here, the fairy garden. This was just dirt, and the children felt that they could make something in here and bring it to life. And we talked about what we should do, and a little boy's idea was to make it a fairy garden.
Yep. Oh, beautiful. Really, it's quite a small space. I think it feels bigger because it's broken up, but it's not like you've got a football-sized field to work with.
No, not at all. And sometimes, like with only 20 children, there could be a few children up in the amphitheatre, some are on the climbing frame, some might be playing on the grass or in the sand pit. It just does spread the children out, because there are particular areas, and those areas sort of tell the children what you do there as well.
Yep.
So a lot of times they come out and play and they don't need additional equipment. They can just play in the playground, and that's just enough equipment for them.
Yep. Did you have a master plan, or did it just kind of evolve?
We did have a master plan, but now when I look back, it's probably nothing like that. Because different families came with different strengths.
Yes.
We had a dad who was a landscaper, so he helped us with the amphitheatre up there in the project that we did with the Darawal elders. Another couple of mums were doing mosaics, so they helped us with mosaics, things like that. So it has evolved.
Yeah, and really depended on who's been here at the time.
And the children have had ideas too.
Yeah.
So we've incorporated those ideas. Each year we have different families who are really willing to help on big projects. And throughout the year, parents come up every fortnight, do a bit of work in the garden with their children. We have a couple of major working bees.
Yep.
But yeah, always very supportive.
So tell us about some of the things that you've got here. I mean, I noticed the water tanks and a few things like that. What else is here?
Well, we've got 3 frog ponds.
Okay.
They're just over here.
Yep.
And they're sort of just hidden in the nursery. And that's for safety, not only for the children, but also safety for the frogs.
Themselves, yep.
Yeah. And this is the nursery where children do a lot of propagating of succulents here.
Yep.
And they sell aloe vera. So they do propagating of the aloe vera as well. We've got another frog pond over here, which is in the ground.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And we've got our 3 worm farms over here as well.
Yep.
And we've got nesting boxes. So
what do you get in those?
Oh, well, on this side,
Yes.
just up here, we've got 2 rosellas.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
Bradley from Bush Care tells us that they usually mate for life. And we think they're the same ones since
They
2005.
keep coming back.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're always coming back. And in the nesting box on the other side, we've got a mother possum and a baby possum at the moment.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So the children had planted a little bit of parsley just down on the other side.
For the possums to eat.
Yes, so that they pop down there, eat that, and so they don't go to our strawberries.
Right, okay. Oh, yeah, it's good to distract them.
Our children bring the scraps out. They sort their scraps into compost or recycling or, into the worm bin. And then after lunch, they bring those out to the worms. So they have that real connection. That's how it becomes embedded, when you get the children doing those sort of things.
I was going to say, a lot of what you're doing seems to come from the children,
Yes.
as well as coming from you as the adults.
Well, we find if the children are interested in something, then they're more likely to want to be involved, and that sparks our interest as well. And they're very interested a lot in what we're interested in too. So children will ask me, is there washing to put out today? They'll ask Lydia, you know, are we going to play with clay today? Because they know Lydia's got a real interest in clay. I've got an interest in the washing line, you know, that sort of thing. So, but other times they'll suggest things, you know, that they've seen happening at home or out in the community, and then together we work on that.
Looking around the centre, one of the things I noticed straight away is just the sheer amount of natural materials. Inside, you know, the tables are set up very much with natural materials. There was clay, there was ochre for painting with, there are, you know, sticks and pieces of log cut up rather than necessarily all the standard building blocks. That's obviously a deliberate decision.
Yes, very deliberate. And also it's a monetary decision. We don't have a lot of money to buy a lot of resources, and when there's things that are available that just outside our gate or in our playground, we make use of those as well. And also I think it enhances and complements the other materials and equipment that you're using with the children. These tree branches, they cut down a couple of trees just a couple of days ago when they were doing some work in the park. And so the landscapers just popped them over the fence for us. So the children are going to build a cubby, and we thought we might be able to use some of the branches for that. And they're using some of them in art and with clay work today.
Do you see a difference in the way the children use those materials?
Yeah, I do. I think they use their imagination. Their building, particularly with the blocks, can be a lot more elaborate when you add tree branches and cut up logs to it. And I see with the clay too that they're actually modelling things that they see outside. So they're building rocks or trees or animals, and sometimes that can be a little bit different when they're using other materials.
What you do isn't just inside the preschool, you do quite a bit over the fence, out in the community.
Out the gate.
It is just on the other side.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We've joined it with Sutherland Shire Council with Bush Care this year, and that we've been involved with them for a few years now on Tree Planting Day. But the children have enjoyed it so much, we wanted that to continue and be a regular thing, and so that we could get to know Bradley, who's the Bush Care officer, a lot better. So once a month on a Wednesday, we go out for Bush Care. And the children are just loving it. It's something they really look forward to.
Bradley Van Leut's my name, and I'm a Bush Care Officer with Sutherland Shire Council. I work with the kids here at the Point Preschool once a month doing bush care work. Jobs related to bush regeneration, mulching, weeding, planting local native species grown at our local nursery. So they've got a great little garden out the back there where they have they're outside quite a bit of the time, but out here it's sort of beyond the boundaries of the preschool. They get to experience a bit more of our local bushland. They talk about bush care after the days that they've come out with me. They seem to be asking more relevant questions rather than just telling me that they've got a cat. They'll be able to tell us that they've got a gum tree, or they went for a bushwalk, and it relates back to what we're doing here.
And you work very closely with the local Aboriginal community as well?
Yes, we do.
How is that? I mean, does that mesh with the sustainability?
Oh, very much so. Les Bursell, who's one of the Darawal elders and a good friend of the preschool, he always talks to the children about how, before white settlement, how beautiful Australia is and how it's part of our responsibility to be able to keep the land beautiful. And that's what the children are trying to do here within the fences of the Point Preschool, but also outside. And he gives the children a really good understanding about looking after the environment for ourselves and also for our community.
It seems to me that lots of what you're doing, it's not necessarily big things, it's lots of little things that are adding up to that sort of sustainability overall.
Yeah, lots and lots of little things. But I think when you put them together, it's creates a really wonderful connection with the children and with the educators, and, you know, just what's outside our door as well. And it does make the day really enjoyable and gives a lot more meaning to what we're doing. Lots of the parents tell us that the children take home some of the ideas from here and they want to have a veggie patch or a worm farm, or they just want to spend time with their families outdoors, and that's definitely strengthening relationships.
What do you say to someone who's really just not sure where to start, not sure where to get information from, not sure what the right way to go is?
Well, I think within your own team, you've got a lot of knowledge, and somebody else might have a connection with one of their friends or somebody in the community, or just within your families. So I think having a plan is a good start. And as I mentioned before, an area you're interested in, you just have to decide what area do you want to start in. And sometimes it's monetary that is a focus. And then other times it might be growing vegetables. Another time it just might be having a look at, what cleaning products you use. But pick an area and start from there. And there's lots of information available on the internet. There's lots of great resource books available. And you can connect with an environmental group, and there are always lots of support there.